Hello there. All right, this was recommended to me, and not like I've seen enough of Tata, because apparently there's nothing that shows how American business practices are absolutely terrible than just seeing Tata's business empire. But this is how Tata built India, and yeah, let's get on into it.
Tata, the industrial conglomerate that lies at the heart of India's success on the global business stage.
Well, yeah,
for almost 2 centuries,
outshine
the Tata
everyone
Group
else.
has pioneered multiple industries in India and remains a market leader in most of them. You've probably heard of Tata Motors, their car division, but as you soon find out, their reach extends far beyond that one subsidiary. In this video, we'll go through 3 generations of Tata businessmen to see how they built one of India's most successful companies.
This is going more through the family. All right.
The story of Tata begins during the reign of the British Empire. India back then was a huge exporter of cotton, but the brutal regime of the British East India Company left little room for local entrepreneurs to develop. The poor treatment by the British eventually resulted in a rebellion against them in 1857, which ended the power of the British East India Company and replaced it with the British Raj. Now, compared to its ruthless predecessor, the Raj was much more focused on keeping the peace. The Raj didn't exploit the Indian population quite as harshly, and it also invested a lot of money in building India's first railways, for example. Of course, at the end of the day, the British Raj was still an oppressive colonial power, but at least it finally gave the local population the economic opportunity to develop themselves. Because India was an exporting country, the first Indian entrepreneurs came from exactly that sector, and one of them was Jamsetji Tata. He was the son of an exporter in Mumbai, and he graduated in 1858, exactly the perfect time to take advantage of the economic reforms of the British Raj. Because his father's export business was growing, in 1859 Jamsetji went to Hong Kong to develop a subsidiary there, and upon seeing the sheer scale of British commerce there, he realized that the Tata export business had truly global potential. Over the course of the next decade, he would travel to Japan, China, and Great Britain, establishing a network of distribution for his father's business. He'd eventually create his own exporting company in 1868.
That's just it. Having the vision to see what other people don't. That's true. Yeah, that's the real miracle right there. Being able to see what other people just can't fathom.
Using the money he made, he started building textile mills of his own, effectively creating a vertically integrated business. From the very start, Jamsetji's philosophy was to find the best practices used across the world and to bring them back to India. In his textile mills, he enacted policies that were virtually unknown to most of India, like offering sickness benefits and pensions to his employees. But Jamsetji wasn't content with just the textile industry. He saw the wonders the Industrial Revolution had created in Europe, and he wanted to recreate them back home. He began working on a steel production plant in 1901, modeled after the ones he had seen in Germany. Even more ambitious was his hydroelectric project, inspired by his visit to the Niagara Falls power plant in 1903. Jamsetji realized the incredible power of tourism, and so he also created a chain of hotels, starting with the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, which even today is one of the most recognizable buildings in Mumbai. Jamsetji was truly a man dedicated to business and to helping people through it.
He just saw it and knew he could do it.
To the point where he donated land and buildings towards the creation of the Indian Institute of Science, the eminent university of India. He would not, however, live to see most of his projects realized, because he died while on a business trip in 1904, leaving the already sizable Tata company to his 2 sons. Together they consolidated their ownership into a single holding company, which in turn is owned by the charitable trusts they created for future generations. Jamsetji's sons fulfilled many of their father's ambitions.
So they're allowing trusts, charitable trusts, to basically manage it. I've never heard that before, where the people see that they have billions of dollars at their hands and they hand it off. I mean, the only equivalent I could think was when George Lucas sold Star Wars for $4.1 billion. And, well, that's enough to live so many lifetimes. He doesn't need that money, so he donated it. But That's one person. And this is just so hard for people not to see greed, not to see dollar signs. And the fact that these are the sons who were born into this prosperity and they're just take it. That's even rarer for kids who are born into a better lifestyle due to their parents' hard work. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. Adults who strive hard to give their kids everything that they never had. And then the kids basically say that they only got it because, well, the color of their skin, or it only happened because of who they are as a person. It had nothing to do with their parents' hard work. And it's so amazing to see that they're like, yeah, this isn't on us. We got this because our parents did it, and we're going to give it to them. Just so, that mindset seems to have been getting lost, especially here, especially where I am at. It is just lost. Where people blame everything on, it's just because I have a different skin color than. No. If you want to work hard, you can choose to work hard. If your parents worked hard, thank them for that. Don't say it's because it's how you were born. That kind of jades me. Hearing people who were born into the money saying all that, and it's just like, your parents worked for that, or their parents worked for that, or your great-grandparents worked for that. It has nothing to do with you. Sorry.
They oversaw the creation of India's first steel works in 1907, India's first cement plant in 1912, and the first indigenous insurance company in 1919. By the time the leadership mantle passed on to the next generation in 1938, Tata Sons was comprised of 14 different companies.
Sheesh.
This time, however, instead of it going to one of Jamsetji's grandsons, leadership instead went into the hands of a distant cousin, with a very interesting background. Jehangir Tata, better known as JRD, had been in the company since 1925, but
so
he had been
there.
raised in France, and was a close friend to the man who made the first flight across the English Channel. In other words, JRD was a passionate aviator, and in 1929 he obtained India's first pilot license. So unsurprisingly, his first big project at Tata was to develop an airline. In 1932 he created the Tata Air Service, which originally only carried mail, but then in 1938 started doing passenger flights as well, even helping out the British in the Second World War. Now, you'd imagine India's independence in 1947 would have been beneficial to the Tatas, but in reality, the socialist policies of the newly created government were at odds with private business. India's first prime minister saw just how successful JRD had been with his airline, and in 1953 he unilaterally decided to nationalize it. He kept JRD as the airline's chairman until 1977, and as you can imagine, the company...
That's what I don't like about government. Here, this is a company that's actually working to better everything, and government goes in and just unilaterally equalizes. It makes it. It's just where's the ingenuity? No, they just. I'm probably misunderstanding. Maybe it was just here I can help it, but
the company only went downhill from there, drowning in ever-increasing debt. Of course, JRD would not let politics get in the way of business, so he did his best to grow Tata while avoiding the wrath of the socialists. He created Tata Motors in 1945, originally with the idea of building locomotives, but in 1954 he branched out into commercial vehicles through a partnership with the German company Daimler. Over the course of his 52 years of leadership, JRD expanded the Tata Group from 14 companies to 95. But to do that, he had to dramatically lower the ownership Tata Sons had in each one in order to appease the socialists. In 1969, the Indian government introduced the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, which was essentially targeted at Tata, even though they were very far from a monopoly by Western.
Yeah, by Western standards, for sure. I understand preventing a monopoly from exploding. Someone who basically owns everything, but that's normally owns everything of one kind. And Facebook is considered, well, for all intents and purposes, a monopoly. Any form of social media, unless it's TikTok, is all owned by Facebook. Every single one is basically bought out by Facebook. Even WhatsApp became owned by Facebook, and that used to be the free platform, the one that's just that, and then it gets bought out, and then yeah. And the fact that they're attacking a group of people who are literally just creating hundreds of companies at this point, well, 95, that's close to 100 companies, just to make them suffer for the fact that they're creating jobs. And I mean, if you're taking all over every single motor industry in the world, yeah, definitely stop that. Definitely stop that. No mom and pop shop could ever compete. Of course, what mom and pop shop would create cars, but whatever. It's just so interesting to see that they're targeting, they're creating opportunities everywhere. I mean, what was it? I know it's kind of hypocritical what it just, but like Amazon was going to provide 100,000 jobs, and I forgot where it was, but they basically picketed and basically, you can't do this, big business can't do this. And that location, that small, impoverished location in the States, which is lost out on 100,000 jobs just because people were like, oh, you can't do that. Big business can't do that. And it's just like, they were going to create jobs. Sure, their business practices are of a lot to be questioned, but still, it's just they were creating jobs for people who need them. I always hate it when like government, or even people for that matter, especially now that people seem to be siding with the government. It used to be, what is the line from V for Vendetta? People should not be afraid of their governments. Government should be afraid of their people, because that's how it should be. As we, the people, decide what our governments do. At least that's how it should be. But lately, it seems like people are just so swayed on emotion, logic, reason, and really any kind of sound business practice or anything has gone out the window.
Standards.
Sorry.
But as JRD expanded the group and lowered its ownership in the individual subsidiaries, he started losing control. Some of his companies just weren't performing, and the man he sent to fix them was this guy, Ratan Tata. He is one of Jamsetji's great-grandchildren, and he joined the Tata Group in 1962. His first major project came in 1971, and it was pretty difficult. Ratan was given charge of a struggling Tata company known as Nelco, which in the 1950s was India's biggest producer of radios, but just 20 years later it had fallen to a 3% market share. Ratan's focus was on technology and the future. So instead of trying to salvage the radio, he instead funded the development of new products, like satellite communications, which restored Nelco in the 1980s and made Ratan the apparent successor of JRD. Ratan claimed leadership of the Tata Group in 1991, right as a wave of economic liberalization swept across India. The socialists lost power and India finally joined the global capital market. But this presented a big threat to Tata. Up until now, it had operated in a very protected economy, which was suddenly open to competition from foreign companies. Worse yet, JRD had let Tata become extremely decentralized, so it would be very slow to adapt to new competitors. Ratan had no choice but to re-establish ownership over all the Tata subsidiaries, and that didn't come cheap. He sold 20% of Tata Sons, the holding company, and used that money to buy shares in the Tata subsidiaries, especially Tata Steel and Tata Motors. He then reorganized all 100 subsidiaries into 7 sectors, establishing a framework along which he could actually control them. But just wielding power isn't enough to turn around a struggling business, and in the 1990s pretty much every Tata company was losing ground to international competitors. Ratan's answer, however, was brilliant. He started acquiring foreign competitors and absorbing them into the Tata Group, effectively buying all their talent and supply.
What was I saying about a monopoly? Basically buying up things that are similar to what it's selling. Yeah, but I don't think he's just trying to expand his business. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong when you're competing with others to just basically compete with others.
Chains and experience in order to strengthen his business back home in
India, competition,
while also expanding internationally. Ratan's buying spree began in the year 2000, when his beverage company, Tata Tea, acquired the Tetley Company from Great Britain. Over the next decade, Ratan ended up acquiring hundreds of companies for pretty much every subsidiary in the Tata Group. Most notably, he purchased the European steel titan Chorus for $12 billion in 2007, and then Jaguar Land Rover for $2 billion in 2008. As you can imagine, the international buying spree has been paying dividends for Tata, and today the majority of their revenues actually come from outside of India. What's even more beautiful is that the majority of Tata subsidiaries are actually public companies, whose shares you can purchase on the stock market in India.
Yeah. It's so funny that they literally had to compete with their own government. It was socialism in the beginning, and they had to decentralize their whole structure. And then when it basically liberalized, they had to re-centralize everything. And it just, the way companies, like this just shows way companies have to deal with location they're involved in. I know India has gone through its ups and downs like crazy because of every situation they've gone through. The way parties, everything changes hands via parties, and it's just insane that a company could still survive past all those. Most would basically fall apart because it's just like, how do I do this? They handed it off to someone who was qualified for the position, someone who could do it. And it's fascinating that they were all in the same family, but they were qualified for it. It has nothing to do with nepotism. They knew they could do it. Just like the radio was going out the door. No one's buying those anymore. Let's push to the next thing. Let's make sure we're ahead of the curve in our hometown, in our home nation, competing with the rest of the world. Not just mimicking, but also furthering the competition of the rest of the world. Because as one company in one nation starts doing one thing, other nations follow as they see. I mean, that's what Tata did in the beginning, right? He went to other nations, saw what they had, and he's all, we can do that too, and did it himself. Not really himself, but it created companies for that, and it just worked. It worked. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. I'm trying to get to more of this. I'm absolutely trying to get to more of this. I'm trying to do daily content, but it's a grind. It's a very tough grind right now. Work has been getting incredibly crazy. I'm always tired. I'm always exhausted. But I enjoy this. I enjoy doing this content. I enjoy being here for you all. I enjoy the comments, the criticisms, the it's not flattery, but like the motivational comments, everything. Everything helps out. I really do enjoy it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Yeah, and if you want to stay tuned for more, please subscribe. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles.